I would like to start by thanking We Make Movies member Marcus Freed for making the connections and helping to make this evening possible. Allison will be monitoring the chat. If you have questions during the session, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to them at the end of the session. We do want to kind of power through because we got three experts here. We don't want to interrupt them too much if we can help it. So here we go. Did you know there are companies out there seeking projects like yours to share their stories? And if you present your film in the right way, it could lead to landing financial support for your project. It's a joy to introduce three experts in this very interesting and complicated field of matching films with corporate sponsors. Nancy Trent is the founder of Trent & Company, a marketing firm that seeks movies for companies to get involved in and helps filmmakers find corporations to finance their films. Kia Kiso is an independent producer and president of Zaza Productions. She has 60+ producing credits for a wide range of projects, including commercials, music videos, TV pilots, series, award shows, short films, and social issue documentaries. Her producing awards and accolades include multiple nominations and wins, such as Best Feature Documentary for Mile and a Half, Best Music Video for Kev Mo's America the Beautiful, a recommend by Oprah for her feature documentary Spiritual Liberation, and recently 6 Telly Awards for the extensive Pareto Labs educational library. She's currently working on the highly anticipated feature documentary Selling Superman and the popular podcast YouTube show Next Level Soul. Kia is an active member of the Producers Guild of America and an advisory board member to multiple organizations. LAINIE STROUSE is the president of Lower Merion Productions and has developed, produced, and sold Teacher of the Year, and is executive producer of E.A.T with Gavin Rossdale and the feature film Abby's Party. She has secured funding for projects such as the Whitney Houston biopic I Want to Dance with Somebody, the best-selling thriller Ultimatum, and Spinning Gold, and produced large-scale live events, including the inaugural live concert event for Ellen DeGeneres' Ellen Fund with Bruno Mars and Chris Martin, raising $5 million with a $2 million goal, and Hilarity for Charity for Seth Rogen, among others. So let's get right into this, folks, and I'm going to let you guys battle who gets to talk first. First question is, how does a filmmaker make their film appealing to sponsors?
Okay, I'll jump in. First of all, you don't make your film appealing to sponsors. So I want to make it really clear that you should really do your film the way you see it, the way it should be done. You should go for excellence. You should go for the best film you possibly can. So I want to make it clear that I don't suggest that anybody who's writing a movie try to write it with a sponsor in mind specifically. But what you want to do is every film has opportunities that are organically there, because there's a road trip movie where the person is driving a car. So that car could be one of many types of cars, right? So that's a sponsorship opportunity. If you have a character who's in fashion, there's an opportunity for that to be a specific brand. If you have I don't know, a very stylish male character, like similar to Richard Gere, and he's played these characters where he's very stylish, and you might have a certain brand that wants to dress him. Armani did that with him very successfully. So I'm a filmmaker. I would never suggest a filmmaker kind of write a script with certain brands in mind. But what I would do is break down the script and look at things that are organically in there that are opportunities. So if you have everything from the character gets up in the morning and they're getting ready for work and they're brushing their teeth, there's a toothpaste there, right? They're getting putting on a watch, they're driving their car. There's just organic things that people use within the script already. And those are the opportunities that I refer to. Is why not get paid for those things that you already need and want? It saves you money on having to go buy them or rent them. And then you can also get revenue to utilize certain brand partnerships. Does that answer the question? Dead silence.
Fantastic.
Yeah. We get we get proposals all the time, and people ask us, and the movie is very interesting, the film is very interesting, but we look for people who are going to be good partners. You know, are these the kind of people that work together? I agree 100% that everyone is going to do the best with the best possible movie. There's no doubt about that. But it's very important that we can think of other things to be doing to make sure that the brand is getting as much attention as possible in the film. So there are all kinds of ways to do this. There's product placement, that's being in the movie. There are different kinds of events. There are things that you could do to allow big retailers to get involved. So you have to look at the film in many different ways. But most important to me is the kind of client that I'm working with. You know, people who are going to be flexible and allow us to work. And I don't want to frighten the filmmakers, because rarely do these ideas for promotional opportunities come from the filmmaker. More often they're coming from the marketing people who are thinking, right, how are we going to get publicity? How are we going to get influencers involved in it? You know, so we're thinking in a different way. But the thing is anyone who's got a film has something that a number of brands could really benefit from. So, you know, you've got something really great for people. It's just finding the right match.
Right. And there's different things, like what Nancy's referring to a lot of times are those post promotional, you know, they just had one with, what was that, Poker Face? They just did one with with Natasha Lyonne. But you know, those are promotion opportunities that can help you on your marketing side as well. But just if you're looking at it from a product integration perspective, from the beginning of the project, that's a different way of doing it. So, you know, I might outreach, like I was doing a Mickey Rourke movie and they wanted a certain suit, and they called me and said, hey, can we get Dolce & Gabbana? And I know them, so I called up Dolce & Gabbana. But what you also have to remember is you have to create a timeline, and these things cannot be a last minute ask for certain things. Like, for example, with anything to do with a designer or couture, they don't have, it's not like a corporate company where they have 1,000 of each. Dolce & Gabbana has one of each size, you know, and if it's award season, they're lending those out to celebrities to use for award season. So that was an issue I ran into one time that people don't think about. So if you want something and you're planning a film, and you know, whether it's an independent film, whether you have budget, whatever it is, you really need to be strategic. You need to think about your timeline. And if you want certain types of things, you have to give people some notice to be able to make those things happen for you. A lot of car companies have fleet vehicles that you can actually borrow that don't cost you anything, and they'll let you use the car for free to be featured in your film. And whether or not they have budget to also spend money on integration is a whole separate, you know, sometimes they'll just give you the product, which may just save you the money of having to go rent the car, which is also a plus. But if you want it to be really integrated, then you need to also plan ahead and give people time to make that happen. I've seen a lot of filmmakers who, you know, they call up, you know, the day before, go, can I get suits? And you're just like, okay, Dolce & Gabbana doesn't have the size for him. And they have all their suits with, you know, award season, they're dressing all the celebrities. So they're not going to give it to you in 20 hours. So it's just something to think about. The way you would plan your timeline, the way you plan your shoot dates, the way you plan ahead to like structure your days. Also give yourself some time on that end too, so people can participate.
Again, to answer that question, it's just, you've got to make a really great, compelling film. You know, I know many people that try and get some sponsorship with their film, and it's just not to the highest quality that it could be. You have to make it a hell yes, you know, as much as you possibly can. And that starts with good story, of course. And my experience with getting in sponsorship is after the product is at least shot. That's just always the way it's been. I love listening to LAINIE because she's there in the very beginning, which has not been in my experience, but I love learning from that. In one instance, for the documentary that I did, Mile and a Half, it's as we were looking through the footage, we were like, at that point, we were like, do we even have a film or not? Once we knew we did have a film, we're like, all right, what is being represented here? Backpacks, you know, shoes, all that. And some of the labels you could see, but also we could have been pretty nondescript. Thankfully, the first backpack company we went to, they loved the idea. But we also thought bigger picture too. What are maybe some retail outlets or, you know, some retailers that could be interested in the project? And that's what we created a relationship with REI. You know, they're not necessarily in the film, but they wanted to do everything they could to support the film. So then eventually they began hosting screenings for us and allowing us to put up marketing in their stores. So, you know, this is a little bit later down the line, but again, it's how do you make your film really appealing to anybody that would want to help you, that already has point of sale available, or, you know, would just want to help with some marketing or funding after the fact.
Yeah. And some of those can really help you with your whole marketing, because most independent films don't have a huge marketing budget, if anything. So partnering with somebody, especially if you have a finished product, that is really great. Being strategic and seeing who, you know, if you have a road trip movie and they go through and they get a taco and you go to Taco Bell and they might want to promote it and do something with you, and they've done that kind of stuff, and it's fun for the brand. And you can even use them during your film festival where everybody gets, you know, Taco Bell, and you can even do some kind of bigger promotion for an independent movie, and that can really help you promote your film. I mean, some of it's just being creative and coming up with things that make sense, because it has to make sense for the brand. So you have to think from their perspective as well. Like, is this product, is my project a good fit? Like, obviously, like a lot of liquor brands don't want to do anything where the person is an alcoholic or the alcohol is shown in a poor light, right? So if you don't want to have a situation where if you have someone who's drinking themselves to death, like Leaving Las Vegas or something like that, most liquor brands aren't going to want to pay to be shown in that light, right? So if your product, you know, if your movie has somebody getting sick on a burrito or throwing up, and like, you're not going to go to that company and expect to get dollars from them. So some of this seems obvious, but you'll be surprised. So just that you have to think strategically and smartly and sort of break down your script and look for those opportunities that are organically there. And see if there is a good fit. And sometimes it could be a small brand. Like Nancy has a ton of brands. And some of them, you know, it's not just like everyone thinks, oh, this car company or these major brands, but sometimes these smaller brands might be more able to work with a small independent person. They don't have the big dollars, but it could be something that you could still get something very rewarding out of it.
I think one of the first things that you should be thinking about as a filmmaker is, what is it that you have to offer? What is it that you have to offer potential sponsors? And then when you go to them, they'll think, okay, what can we be offering them? And if you're not feeling that they're trying to offer you things, you have to think about that. But there are whether we're talking about makeup or apparel or foods, there are so many different ways that there are so many different things that filmmakers need. And these different product companies need that, because the movie industry to them is some kind of exotic thing that they want to figure out how they can get into. And you may not think it's a really big deal, but to somebody who's not in the film industry, you know, I was thinking this morning, like, you know, before a building is finished, they invite the media in hard hats, you know, those yellow hats, to walk around in there. Well, you know, that's the way people look at the movie industry. They want to see, okay, what's going on with the filming? How can we, and you could get things from that. And then when the film is being shown, that's an opportunity that these brands can offer their customers and potential customers and show their retailers what they're doing to try and do things. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but I do think just looking at what's in the film and what might be useful might be really important. And there's a platform called Range Me that has a million different products. You could look that way. There's also Google. There's certainly a lot of ways you can find potential sponsors there too. But think about what you can offer brands and then see what they're offering from you, and the rest is magic.
LAINIE, I love what you said. It's like, it's creative. This could be really creative. The world is your oyster, and you have to refine, you have to narrow it down. You can't go out to everybody. And it's how do you decide who to go out to? Of course, it's what is in the film, what is the toothpaste, what is the suit, and so forth. But what I love doing is getting my team together and talking about who is our audience, who are we really wanting to target, what products are they using?
Yes.
And quite often, in that brainstorming session, I've seen it end up like 40 different potential audiences that we could target. Is it the cubicle rats? Is it the active retiree? Is it the hiker? Is it the person that, is maybe, as a meditator and so forth? And you figure out right then and there, who is our audience? Who are we targeting? Who's maybe our top 2 or 3 people? And then doing a psychographic profile. Where are these people going? Where are they living? What are the products that they're choosing? Where can we intersect? Where's that largest Venn diagram of what our content is with the products that we're using? And you start there. And sometimes you start at the top, right? Is it you go to the big, are you going to Dior, or are you going to maybe as somebody like a regional retailer or an online store that might be smaller, but man, they're going to go in there and crush it and give you all of their resources, all of their time, as much as they can. So you have to weigh that out as well. And what I suggest is when you do, and we'll eventually get there, how do you reach out to them and so forth? But I don't usually just go in and say, this is what I've got. I try and go in with a discovery meeting and like, what are your goals? What are your needs? You're dating. You don't want to say, hey, marry me right away, but you want to say, like, at your first session, you want to learn about their marketing strategy, right? And look for pain points that your film can resolve. And then they fit a partnership.
Yeah, I mean, those are all good points. And I would definitely want to cover that. It is, just like everything else, it's being strategic, it's being thoughtful, it's being creative. But it is also knowing your audience. And so like, if you have like a teen road trip movie, that's an audience, and you will want to approach companies that want to reach the audience that would watch that film. If it's a more adult, dark film, like who are the people that will watch your movie? And I think that's part of understanding, that's why they call it, as they say, show business. It's like, there's the show and then there's the business. So it's like understanding who your audience is, and that will help you do a better job in pitching a brand, because they're going to want to know, like, I always think from the other person's perspective, why would they want to be part of this? Well, what can I deliver to them that they can't get on their own? What problem can I help them solve? So, as Kia was mentioning, it's like you go in there and I always do a discovery meeting with anybody about anything. So, don't go into your hard sell from the get-go. You want to understand, okay, who is your market? Who are you trying to reach? What are the challenges you're finding reaching your market? What are the things that you're successful with? And kind of understand from them and say, oh, that's great, because this is my market too. And this is how I can help you reach that marketplace. This is how we can do online campaign together. This is how we can utilize this film. We have behind the scenes footage. I can do something in your store. We can do a premiere and do a party at your store. So I can bring people to your store. I can bring people to your restaurant. I can do a happy hour at your place. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can integrate. And it's not just the obvious, like, okay, yes, you can use that toothpaste, right? But if you are lucky enough to get a brand that has marketing dollars, you can partner with them and maybe they'll help you market it by promoting the fact that they're in your film. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this, but you have to be part of that is sort of like when you're pitching someone to get them to fund your movie, right? You have to show them all the reasons why you are the person to make this movie. You have the vision, you have that artistry, you have this great project. You kind of have to do that with a brand, but you also have to understand what their needs are. So a lot of times, if you just go in and say, "What I want money, like I need money," they're going to be like, "Okay, great." Like you have to go in there and say, "Hey, I have this great project. I think your product is amazing. How can we work together to promote your product? Using my film as a vehicle. Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to do?" And obviously you'd want to go there knowing some of that in advance, because you want to make sure your film answers their questions, right? So I would look into I would look into kind of the company and the brand and who they sell to, and make sure you know that. So if it's H&M, or if it's, you know, Melrose has a ton of these brands that are kind of regional, or they have them in big cities that have money to market, and they want to, you know, say Alice and Olivia, they want to market and they want to do something. You can do an in-store shopping thing with them. You can have them dress your person. You can do some kind of launch with them. And that's sort of a good mid-range, because they're a big enough company to be able to do something with you, but they're not so big that there's no way that they would, you know, speak to an independent filmmaker. So it's a strategy.
It's music to a potential sponsor's ears for people to come to them with all this worked out. But a lot of filmmakers may not be able to have that together. So don't get overwhelmed. You know, I want everybody here to see this as an opportunity they can participate in, and not get completely overwhelmed, like, oh my God, how would I do it? So, you know, there's a lot of things that we tell brands on ways that they could get more involved in this, and there are ways that you could do it. So some of the things that we're talking about are very easy to do. Like, you should know what your film is, and who you think your market is, and what, you know, what the goal is, and what the objective is, and where you want to go, and what are the assets that you could be trading, as well as what are the things that you need, and then do something. But it doesn't have to be as complicated. But if you have those main things in mind, which you probably do if you're making a movie, then you're in good shape to start doing this. And I don't think, you know, it's great to think big, and it's great to start big, but you could also start smaller. You know, wherever you are, there is, you know, you know people who could be potential sponsors, or where from, whatever situation your movie is dealing with. There are a lot of opportunities, so don't get overwhelmed. But, you know, it's great to think big, but you can also think small and build.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a place that you've shopped, or a place that you have bought your car, or sometimes those are really good avenues to start with, because if you have a local dealership and you bought your car from them, sometimes that's a good place to start. You're a customer of them, right? So you could go in and speak to the manager there, the general manager, and say, look, I bought my car here. I really think you guys are great. I'm doing this movie. I'd love to talk to you about working out some kind of arrangement. And it could be something as simple as that. So when
location, or even a location,
I mean, I've gotten locations many times just by doing that, and they're very excited to have their movie featured. I mean, I got a whole building for $1. I mean, so it's it is kind of, you don't ask, you don't get, but you also have to be prepared to ask in an intelligent, in a strategic way, and try to think from their perspective about what you can offer to make it worthwhile for them. And that's also, you know, people like me, and there are people who do this as a, you know, I do this for filmmakers. Sometimes there's other companies or brands, or if you reach out to certain PR firms that represent brands, some of them have divisions that focus on brands. And so you may not be calling the company, you might be working with their marketing firm or their PR firm. So that's another avenue.
It is.
Oh, go ahead, Nancy. I'm sorry.
And it is a really good idea to be contacting different marketing agencies and say, look, is there something you could be thinking of? Because there are so many, because they look at your film as, wow, this is something different. I really want to help make it. And I know that as filmmakers, you're like, what? You know, nobody's saying that about my film, but the truth is that they are. When you're talking about a location, I know somebody who they were shooting in an area, and they got sponsorship, and the sponsorship came in all different forms, just because they wanted to promote that area. So there, you have to be creative. And then again, every single movie, you're working with makeup, and all the makeup companies want film credits, and you're working with hair, you're working with clothes. film credits to them are gold. They're everything. Jewelry company, they're everything. So, and in every film, you've got to wear makeup, you've got to have hair, you got
Or
to.
if the character puts on lipstick in your shot, or puts on mascara, or puts on something in the film, that's a good branding opportunity right there.
Absolutely. I see a lot of questions coming in the chat.
I'm actually, so I'm just, everyone, please keep them coming. I'm putting them in a whole other section. I'm noting them. So I'm gathering all the questions.
We really want to help you guys as much as we can. So please keep the
I
questions.
love this. Yeah, keep the questions coming. I'm
Well,
noting
Yeah,
them
we
all,
want to
so
really
keep them-
answer the ones that people need help with. So if there's something specific, I'd rather focus on the things you guys actually want to hear.
Whit,
Well,
I'll take your lead on that.
Yes, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, I mean, the great thing about interviewing people who actually, are experts in the field is that if you ask them questions, you can get out of the way and they'll start answering other questions before you even ask them. Like my next question was, how does a filmmaker identify potential target companies? You kind of already talked about that, and what makes for a good match between film and sponsor. The same thing, you've kind of already touched on that. It seems to me like all three of you are definitely encouraging a more organic approach in matching up filmmakers and sponsors than kind of forcing the issue, not like saying to yourself up front, hey, let's have our people drink Coca-Cola and then approach Coca-Cola necessarily. But
that would be a commercial,
right.
If you
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I personally find it very distracting in a project when it's too obnoxious, I call it. Like when somebody's like turning the can so you can see the logo kind of thing. We see it all the time, and I get it. I'm not judging. If you get it, good for you. But I personally prefer more organic approach where they can be drinking Coca-Cola. That's fine. People drink Coca-Cola, but it's not going to be like, like from
Right.
nowhere where it's just like so blatant. I find it, and the way I pitch that to the brands is, I want people to think that this character's choosing it. Yeah, there you go. She's modeling it for us. I want the brand, I want the customer and the viewer and the film goer to see that character is choosing this product and it looks more organic rather than it's forced and paid for. So that's how I kind of pitch it to them is look, this character's choosing to drink this. We don't want to make it so obvious where it looks like you paid for it. And a lot of the people I work with like that. They want to look like this, high level person chose to drive a Cadillac rather than you zoom in and make it so blatant that everyone goes, oh, that's a paid, that's obviously a paid integration, and it takes you out of the story. So that's just how I prefer to do it. I do get it though. If somebody's willing to pay you millions and millions of dollars and wants you to zoom in on their logo, I'm not suggesting you say no, but that's just a personal choice.
And LAINIE, don't you find that it just is like some really clear communication up front? I mean, you find a really good time to bring it up, but
Yes.
it's good to find out sooner than later that they have a different expectation than you do.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. It's like, I am very big on full transparency when, people say about expectations and all that stuff. It's super important that on both ends, you are very honest and clear about what you can do, what you can deliver, and what you expect from them. And if you don't want to go and spend a ton of money on legal and all that stuff, I literally make a bullet pointed agreement where it's literally just no legalese, just very straightforward. Like, okay, you're going to give us $250,000. This is exactly what we're going to do. This is what you're going to get. This is what we expect from you. 50% upfront, 50% on delivery, or we're going to give you $250,000 upfront. And then this is what we're going to deliver. And this is what we're going to do at the end. Like, just make sure that you are being like, I know there's an urge because we're desperate to get the funding to, sort of be vague or angle things a certain way. But I highly recommend that you go for clarity on both sides, because you want to build a relationship long term. And also, if there's any money they don't pay up front, if you are not honest and you can't deliver what you say, they won't pay the rents. They won't pay the rest. And then you've wasted everybody's time. So I just highly advise you to really be I mean, I choose to be this way just regardless about everything. Anybody I'm working with, you want to just have good communication, be very clear and bullet point it out so that you don't want to create a legal issue. You don't want to create problems. You don't want to not get paid. Just make it very clear and don't over promise, be really clear. Under promise, over deliver is always a good thing to do.
Can I chime in here? Because I have this question coming in, a few on that note, if it's okay. What, as far as short films versus feature, so this is from the Hills. A few questions about this have been coming in. Seeking corporate sponsorship. Are they only interested in features? Best way to reach out for interested in short films? Is that okay? Email, cold call? What is your guideline or advice into reaching out into short films? Okay.
I think short film, all kinds of films are all okay, because there's all different kinds of things that you could be doing with all of them. So, when we're thinking about how product companies can find out about films, we say, oh, you should go to Sundance. Oh, you should know about IMDb. Oh, you should be reading Variety and a whole Hollywood Reporter. On the other hand, people who are looking to get attention from different brands, if they know what category they're going in, there's trade publications, there's articles that they can easily find, that they can get people's names, and there's good old fashioned Google. You could always, as well as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is another one that might be really great to get. And one of the things that I always think about is we think that we have to get the exact perfect right person to contact that person. And a little trick that I found lately is, instead of getting the exact right person, get someone who's one person removed, who will say to that person, oh, I got this, it looks kind of interesting, this may be something. And because it's so easy all day long to say no to things you don't know. So if someone inside says, oh, this looks interesting, you're getting kind of, it's got a special brand on it.
Well, and one trick that I have, I mentioned this to Nancy, is if you go into the company's website, you go into their media tab, they have PR, they have press releases there, they have quotes from people, they have a media contact, for who to contact for press. Sometimes I go through that. I mean, that's how I get the cold call contacts, honestly.
And I think you only need
let
to
this stay on this call, because that's like my little secret trick. I don't want those people to get overwhelmed and then they stop answering the phone.
I also think don't be afraid to contact more than one person at an organization, because what happens if somebody's heard of something, it's familiar and you feel good about it, versus something you don't know, which you have a hesitation about. So don't, you can contact more than one person and let people know what you're doing. But
and also if I call up Nancy and I say, Nancy, I really, I want to talk to you about this great project and I really want one of your brands. And she goes, oh, I'm not the person in charge of that, but here, let me get you to the person who is. And she directs you. Then now you sort of have a warmer call. You can say, hey, John, I talked to Nancy. She thought this would be good for us to chat about. Like, that's a nicer call now than you cold calling John, right? So now you have a reference. You can say, I spoke with Nancy. She thought you and I should chat. And that's a different conversation.
Right? It's easy. It's easy. I know that cold calling seems really intimidating and nobody really wants to do it, but it's fun. Just like enjoy it. You get hung up, and then also remember that when you're being cold called, you have to explain to people that, they shouldn't be working for companies that make them call people at times that aren't convenient for them. Not, because what goes around comes around. But generally, getting the right contact shouldn't be a problem if you do your initial research. But don't think that you have to go crazy. I'm afraid that people on this call are going to get really afraid that you just
I
do
just
it.
honestly know filmmakers are brave, and in general, like if you're doing this, it's not for the faint of heart. If you're doing an independent movie, and I would never cold call for my own behalf, but when I'm working on a project, or if I'm raising money for a nonprofit, or I'm whatever it is, I have no shame about that. So it's like it's once you get the rust off, like it's always that paralysis the first time you pick up the phone, but once you get used to that, there's nothing that's going to happen to you. The worst they can say is no, which I'm sure we've all heard before. So there's no real, that's literally the worst thing that can happen to you. They're not going to call the police on you. They'll just say no, or they might hang up, and that's it. So honestly, I just get over your fear of that, because I know it can be really awkward and awful. But honestly, if you do a little digging and you get to a decent person and prepare what you want to say, so you don't get that like, they just hang up. You want to just say, you want to have like your pitch prepared until it becomes second nature to you. If it's the first time you're doing it. And obviously, if you can get to a person whose job it is to handle the brands, this is what they do. That's what they're there for. They're there to look at options for their brands. That's what their job is.
And a very simple, very preliminary idea with cold calling is, I remember when I first started doing it, when I was, I thought, oh, you know, like I'm really afraid, but I want to make sure that every call is a little bit different so that I can make them more creative. I think that they'll be able to, and that is not true. When you get the pitch right, just keep repeating the same exact pitch, because it works. And there's something about it. You get the pitch right, write it down, and learn it. And I can give you a million stories in my personal life about why this works well. Don't try be creative when you're creating the pitch, but when you get the right pitch down and you see that people are reacting, you see that you're getting a response, don't feel like you have to change it for different people. Say the same thing.
But on that note, I do recommend that you are conscious of the other person. So if somebody answers the phone and they sound harried or annoyed or in the middle of something, listen and say, oh, did I catch you at a bad time? Like, you know, because that differentiates you from a telemarketer who's just going to run into their pitch without thinking. So if I call somebody and they're like, ugh, or they're like, oh my God, what, you know, or like they're just sound harried or whatever, just say, hey, you know, hi, you know, this sounds like a rough time for you, or did I catch you at a bad moment? Is there a better time I could reach you? And then now you have the potential to schedule time with that person, as opposed to being, you know, when you get a telemarketer and you answer the phone and they just run into their pitch and they don't even stop to say like hello or whatever, you're going to get hung up on. So if you just try to strike up a real conversation with them before you start your pitch, you'll have much more success than if you are just ignoring the other person on the other end. So if they sound completely annoyed or in the middle of something, acknowledge that and say, oh, wait, you sound like you're in the middle of something. Can I call you back later? Is there a better time? I just wanted to, you know, ask you a quick question. That kind of thing. And then that just differentiates you from the people who don't pay attention.
So I love you, LAINIE, and you know how much I respect you, but I must say that I think that if you could get it down to one or two lines and then you say, oh, you sound very stressed right now, you know, and they'll start talking to you. If you really care.
I mean, look, everybody has their own way of doing things. I'm not gonna, you know, for me, that's what works. Because I find that's how, you know, it instantly changes the response on the other end. If you can get them laughing, or you can get them to hear that you are a person, not just a robot, that you're listening, that they sound like it's a bad moment. Because if they're in the middle of a meeting and they might've answered because they thought you were somebody who was supposed to join the meeting and you're not that person, I don't want to go into a pitch. That's just for me. They're not going to listen and they're going to be annoyed. So I would rather go, oh, and then they'll go, oh yeah, I'll be done here at 3, call me at 3. And then already now you have a call at 3 and you can say, hey, I talked to you earlier. You asked me to call you at 3 and now you have an appointment. So that works, you know, that works for me.
Okay, great. Whit, do you have anything, or should I chime in with you?
No, I was going to ask if Kia had anything to add to that.
No, this is beautiful. I mean, as far as like marketing, I always have to sort of zen it a little bit. I'm like, I have something that is going to be valuable that somebody else is searching for today, and my phone call is going to answer all their prayers, right? Like I'm the prayer they said this morning when they woke up. That's the only way I can kind of get through the day, right? I'm the matchmaker, right? and you got to read the room.
But you have to believe in you have to believe in your project, and you have to know where you are answering somebody's like what they need. That's really the difference when you're going in there meekly and feel like you're begging versus I'm delivering something awesome to you. You have to go in with that attitude of, I have this great project. I can help you get to this whole market. And you are answering somebody's problem. So you're fixing something for someone. So you have to go in there with that attitude. I totally agree.
And then as soon as they say no, that means you're, closer to your yes, right? Because sometimes it's just a bit of a numbers game as well. I do sponsorship for a podcast, and, we have a certain amount of sponsors that we want. And so it's like, we've, 10x that of who our list of potential prospects are, right? So we're just like, it's literally like, who are we just going through? It's a bit of a numbers game. Unfortunately, in that world, podcasts are a little bit more numbers in that way. But we have a laid out customer journey for, each step along the way. And it's like, all right, that wasn't it. Soon we're going to be the person that will say yes.
Yeah. And if it's not your cup of tea, like, know yourself. If you're really someone who you're not comfortable with this, I mean, I highly recommend you start trying it. But if you have another member of your team that's just really good at this, then let that be their task. Like, it's not for everyone. I understand that, like, know yourself. But I mean, I think part of it is stretching yourself and trying to get better at things. I mean, nobody's great at everything. But if you really feel like, oh my God, this is so foreign to me, this is not me at all, and you have, member of your team, a producer or someone else on your team who's just really up for this, then, let them do it.
This is a really great thing for other people in the company. If somebody specifically doesn't like selling, there's probably someone in the project that loves selling because they're kind of opposite.
That's their personality. Yeah. I mean, I think knowing yourself and your skill set and your strengths is a big part of being successful. It doesn't mean you can't develop new strengths and push yourself. So, if you're up for it, I would say go for it. But if you really feel like there's someone who's really good at that on your team, part of being a leader is delegating and working with people's strengths, So it's important to let people shine.
And there are companies out there that you could go to, right? That you could bring in and they could do this for you. But as anything, it's like when you outsource something, they don't have that same sort of passion as you do. And, they don't do it for free. They're going to take it. And
Exactly.
That's, it might be more hassle than it's worth, quite honestly. So you have to weigh those, but know that those resources are out there. There's also, some people that are more freelance and just hang a shingle. They're not part of a larger firm or organization. And do your due diligence. Always do your due diligence and check in on them and, see people that have worked with them and see if they're actually a good fit. I have my life raft approach with when bringing anybody into a project is after I get to know them a little bit, I ask myself, first of all, is this somebody that I want to spend a significant amount of time with, but also, could I see myself at a life raft with them, right? Adrift at sea, waiting for, someone to rescue me. Do I trust them to not, eat me when I'm sleeping, or will they pull their own weight, right? So you really need to consider, because, like LAINIE said, like, we give a lot of ourselves to these projects, and we're kind of a special breed, and what we do is really hard, and you don't want to bring somebody in that's going to make it harder.
Yeah, I do. I agree with that, but that's, across the project anywhere. It's just because there's going to be tension, there's going to be stress, and you want people who can manage that, their personalities are going to gel, they aren't hysterical or adding drama where you don't need it. You want the drama for the screen, not behind the screen. I think picking people who are pros, but also have the right temperament to work with is hugely important across any part of making a project. I've just, picking people who are on the verge to go to the next level, and you can help them get the title they need, but they're ready to get that bump is a great way to kind of get someone for an independent project at a reasonable amount, but have the skills, because they just need that title. but they're already doing the job and they have the drive and the dedication and the skills. And but I think that's across the board. On anytime I'm hiring a crew or cast, I really look a lot at who the person is, and speaking with them and getting to understand who they are, because there's nothing worse than you have a tight schedule and somebody has a complete meltdown and freaks out and starts yelling at everyone. It's like, nobody wants that. And I've seen it happen. And it's just very important that when you're selecting anyone on your cast and crew, whether it's that part of that is involved, and also for yourself to realize if you have a bad moment, to try to stay calm and express yourself, and you'll get a lot further. And if you really need a moment to freak out, go somewhere and go yell at, in the dark outside, and not at a person, and just try to communicate as clearly as possible. That's just, a good practice in general, because there's going to be tensions. There's going to be moments, especially if you're doing small projects, independent projects, you never have enough time or money. But if you create a good environment, you'll get better results.
I want to take a moment here and just do a quick recap of a few things that I've noticed have been recurring themes. And then I'm going to go back to Allison with some of our folks' questions. It seems to me that three things stand out from that have been kind of said in different ways several times. And one is research your potential partners, your sponsorship partners. And not, that includes like upfront, because people are impressed when you already know something about them, but also it avoids the pitfalls of, if you find out from someone you trust, oh, I worked with these people before and they're difficult, or, watch out for this potential problem. It's the same thing as hiring in the industry in anything. You know what I mean? Like, have you worked with this actor before? Are they easy to get along with? Are they problem solvers or problem creators? With that in mind, it also sounds like you guys have all been saying, and this is a great way, again, to approach anything. If you're coming to somebody with the attitude, here's what I bring to the table for you, rather than what can you do for me, that you're going to make a lot of allies in this business, and
Yes.
that's a much better way to get sponsorship than to say, hey, than to do it the other way around.
Yes, agreed.
Yes. And then finally, the other thing I liked is you were talking about, making the bullet point list, and we just call those deal memos here at We Make Movies. And we always encourage, even if you've got like a separate contract through SAG or whatever, that you do a detailed deal memo, which just clearly, like you said, points up. So we're going to give you this much money, and and then we're going to do this for you, and we're going to do that for you, and then you're going to do this, this, and this. And at the end of the day, it's all there on a simple piece of paper.
Yes.
And it lays out
it will save you so much trouble, because
yes.
they're human beings. Sometimes hear what they want to hear. and the clarity is, I can't overestimate that enough, having clarity and a document. So when they say, well, you said you were gonna, and then you can hold it up and go, this is what I said. This is what you said. This is what we agreed to. This is what you signed. Because inevitably somebody will say, well, but I thought, this is what I said, this is what I agreed to, and do what you say. I mean, I always just feel that that's important regardless. If you deliver everything you say, you will have that sponsor again. They will be happy. And then you have that opportunity to continue that relationship.
And
that's another industry standard. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think that's good. I mean, that's just good. I think just practice in life in general, just if you do what you say and say what you do, you have that credibility, and ultimately that's really valuable. That's a commodity that is lost a lot of times here. But if you have that credibility and that relationship, that's huge.
Yep.
And sometimes I send those off and people are like, that's not what I expected at all. And it falls through. And that's actually a win, right? Because then, because if you hadn't sent that through, there would have been a misunderstanding, and then it would have been a real problem later on.
Or you can catch it at that point. They say, oh, this isn't what I expected. And it gives you an opportunity to meet in the middle or figure out how to fix that problem, unless it's just irreconcilable. I mean, if it's something where they go, oh no, I want this, I want my logo 3 times, or I want this, or I want to do that, then you can go, okay, well, yeah, we can do that. Okay, let me update this. But that way you're clarifying it and everybody's on board, and you catch a potential issue.
Allison,
Wit.
more questions?
I think you actually just knocked out with that one about half of them. So that was awesome. Thank you very much. Deal memos. Yay. Let's lay it all. I love saying, wake up, you're going to go in and like have the vision. And that's how we should wake up every day going forward. But yes, deal memos, super important. I'm really guilty of that. And I just got knocked in the head with that answer. So thank you so much. Sue has a question. We've created a sponsor fee sheet for our feature film, and I've placed product placement at the top level. Lower levels are logos and media. What's a reasonable top level fee for sponsorship?
That is, I mean, that's literally could be anything. It depends on what the project is, what brand you're going to, what their budget is. Everything is a negotiation. So there's not one answer to that question. I wish there was, but if you're going to a small brand, their budget is going to be very different than if you're going to a big brand. And what are you offering them? Are you doing film festivals for a year? Are you offering, what are you offering them? What kind of branding opportunity are you giving?
So to expand on that, that's a really good point, that with that going to them, you lay out every single thing that you could offer potentially for this level. Each level has a certain sheet that goes along with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're doing a TV series and, I have a TV series I'm shooting, we have a goal number. I wanted $50,000 per episode per brand. But if a brand doesn't have that kind of money and they say to me, we can only do 20, if I want them that badly, sometimes I'll take the 20, but I'm not going to give them the level of what we discussed. We come up with an alternative kind of plan. It's up to you kind of to set your boundaries and what your goals are for that project and how much money is appropriate for what you're offering them. I mean, if the brand is really featured versus not, if they have mentions versus or multiple uses throughout the film, like if your person loves Coca-Cola and they drink Coca-Cola throughout the whole movie, that's a different thing than if they're shown once or not shown at all, but you're doing some kind of back end campaign with them. I mean, there's not like one answer to that question. It really is a negotiation, and you have to look at your overall budget and how much you're asking for based on what you're giving. And to
that point, to rearrange things, maybe to show more of the Coca-Cola if you want that so badly, to
yeah. I mean, look, you're trying to make a film, so you have to make that decision for yourself and what works for your project, and what they're asking for, because they'll come back and say, well, we want this, this, and this. It's not gonna. I've never been able to do like a straight fee structure for product placement in a movie without some level of negotiation. You can have your basic menu. It's great to have kind of a deck that shows your project, the benefits of it, if you have strong cast names or whatever it is that you have to offer, or if it's, like Kia was saying, she does documentaries that are mission oriented. So if it's something that is really mission oriented and you have a brand that's really in on that mission, like I've worked with people who want to clean the oceans, and you're working with a brand that's really into the environment and wants to support cleaning the oceans or things like that. Sometimes it's not mission based. It's really kind of the Wild West in that way. You have to come up with a number that makes sense based on your budget. If your movie's $10 million or your movie's $300,000, what your fee structure is going to be very different.
Is it okay for me to jump in here? I wasn't sure the protocol.
Is this Sue?
Yeah.
That was your question.
I can clarify. Is it okay?
Sure, go for it.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, this is an environmental film. And it is, with a nonprofit attached, but, basically a feature narrative. And it's about saving a river. And I noted in the chat that the fee sheet starts at 50,000 with the product placement and stories that we can talk about the river and their product and all of this in media and on our website, etc. What I'm getting though, as I talk to, for instance, raft manufacturers, I've heard at least 2 come back say, yeah, we can let you borrow some boats, period. And then it's like, well, product placement is, I'm starting, around 50,000. How can that work? And then on the other hand, on the good news, I had some outfitters come in and say, we'd like to combine for 40,000. Can you do that? And it was like, heck yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a negotiation and they'll offer you what they have in their budget and what they are comfortable with. And you have the option to take it or not. I mean, that's why I've never had the luxury. I mean, if you have a TV series that's established and you can set real clear boundaries. And once you get past this point in your films where you've established a career, if you're Martin Scorsese and, and you can go and ask for $1 million for a brand, then God bless. But, for these other projects, it's really a negotiation and a partnership between you and the brand that you have to kind of find out what they can afford.
So I guess my question is more, is 50,000 outlandish? Is it in the ballpark, for a top level?
Again, it's on the level for a network show.
Okay.
If you're doing a documentary, do you have an output for the documentary? Is it
No, it's a narrative feature, and we expect to get, hopefully some name stars. So yeah.
So you don't have as much established on this project. So if they're willing to do 40, I would be very happy. I mean, it's 50K without any confirmation of distribution, without any named actors. I mean, you have to have, you have to kind of find that sweet spot of what they can afford. And if they're excited about your project and it's attached to a nonprofit and it can do good, then I say go for it. I mean, I feel like 50K, if you're not sure about distribution, is probably a little on the high side, but if you can get it, good for you.
No, that helps a lot. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Stu. I think, it's really everything you're saying is case by case, which is very important.
Yeah. I mean, it
all your
really is
tools.
finding that. Yeah. Who are you talking to? What do they have in their budget?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to a tiny little health company, their whole marketing budget might be $100,000 or $50,000. And if you're going in there asking for $50,000, they can't give it to you.
Yeah.
So
And I'm curious, sort of like this fee sheet, is this something that you're sending with sort of the cold email, the cold card? Are you waiting to send that to them after you have a discovery meeting and you're finding out what their needs are and you're getting a sense of what their budget is, right?
After, yeah.
Yeah, because, at that point, you kind of know what you have internally, what it is you're looking to get, right? You know that this is the amount of money that you're trying to hit. This is your budget. And maybe you're willing to spread it across as many sponsors as you can, or you really only can, I don't know, for whatever reason, only limit it to one.
Yeah.
And you go for it. But I've never had success of just saying, here's my, do you want tier 1, tier 2? A lot of film festivals do that. And LAINIE, you have some experience in this too. And it's just, it feels like, here's who I am and what level do you want to marry me? And are we going to live at your house or my house or whatever? And you're like, you don't even know any of my status. Right. So it feels.
Once and you've had that discovery, then you can kind of create a custom proposal for them based on what you've learned in that discovery of what their budget is, or if they've given you some kind of range. and just say, look, we can be creative about how we do this. But even when I have a deck, even when I'm doing sponsorship for film festivals, or if I'm doing sponsorship for a nonprofit, or I'm doing for a gala or a concert or anything, I always say to people, it's like a menu. You can have your deck with sort of your goal, with your numbers on it, and say, look, I can customize it if what's on this menu doesn't work for you. So if you're a vegetarian and you're going to a restaurant and they have, a salad with meat on it and you don't want the meat, but you say, look, I don't want that. Can I have this instead? And that's how I approach it with the clients. Is I say, look, here's our menu, but if it's not really fitting what you have or your budget, let me know and we can adjust it based on, we can work together to find a good sweet spot.
Nice.
Lainey, is there ever a world where you send that off without your menu in it? Or are you always sending that off?
And again, it really totally depends on the situation. Like, there's people I've worked with 10 times who I know really well, and I've worked with on other things, and I might shoot them an email and say, hey, so great to, hey, I hope you're doing well, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if it's cold, I always prefer to connect before I send off things, because number one, I want them to be expecting it. Yeah. A lot of people don't open emails if it's coming from someone they don't know, and it may go into spam. They may not look at it. I always prefer, and I have PR people who they've told me, oh, don't call people. Nobody wants phone calls. Well, I prefer to talk to a person and have that connection whenever possible prior to sending them something, because then I go, oh, hey, I know you're busy. Okay, I'm going to shoot you an email. Just wanted to let you know it's on its way. Wanted to make sure you were expecting it, or, whatever that case may be. But you really have to be flexible and negotiate. Because you can go in there and ask for something, and for some people that's not realistic. Like, is 50,000 a good number? I don't know. Who are you asking for it? Is it, the Gap? Yeah, they can probably afford that. But if you're going to a little boutique up the street, that might be their yearly budget.
It also strikes me, if I could interject again, that when we talk about a pitch deck for sponsorship, it sounds like it needs to be kind of an adjustable deck, because the people it's not like you're just going to different studios with the movie idea. The deck has to shift a little, because maybe you're pitching to a footwear company, and then you're pitching to a National Parks Association.
Yes.
Or yes.
Yes. I would say yes. There might be slides that you don't need to change when it's like, if it's a mission oriented project, you can have the mission, you can have the pictures, anything pitching about it. But yes, even when I have a designer do it, I try to make sure there's certain slides where the text is adjustable, or I leave the money out of it altogether and do a custom one sheet with specifics geared towards that person. It's kind of like if you're doing a resume and you're applying for jobs and you're applying for all different types of jobs, you're going to have to adjust your resume based on who you're pitching who you're approaching to get a job. If you're going for a waiter job, or you're going to work in a store, or you're going to do sponsorship, or you're wanting to go into sales, whatever it is, you can't just blanket them with here's my babysitting experience, here's my waiting experience, here's this. If you're going for that, you have to adjust that to that potential boss. I mean, this is kind of, I think, something you need to know for life in general. The more you can customize, the more people are going to see that you care, and that it's custom to them, and that you've heard them, you've listened, and that it's not just being blanketed to everyone and anyone, right? You want to make sure they feel that you've heard them, you've listened to them, and it's custom to what you're asking from them.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Sue, where are you going for potential sponsors? Are these people you know, or people you don't know?
Well, there's a lot.
Mostly I don't know them. So, but some of them I do, but yeah, mostly I don't, or I've maybe had a connection with the company before and I don't know the people now, sort of thing.
Right. One of the things I would suggest doing is going to places like there's a trade show called Outdoor Retailer, and there are specific publications that are for the outdoor world. And you just missed it, but there's another one coming up. There was Expo West, which is all natural products. And then in a couple of months, there'll be Expo East. And you go from booth to booth and meet meet these people. That might be
yeah.
that might be a really good way to
Yeah,
feel them out and get a sense of it. And
that's a
Right.
good point.
some of these companies are really, really small, but Kia earlier had mentioned doing something with REI, where they were able to introduce them. So REI got some benefit, and some of the additional brands got some benefit in it too.
Yeah.
I can assure you that for most of the outdoor equipment companies, that's a pretty big number. Not all
Yeah.
of them, but if you spread it out a little bit, that's great. And one of the things that I could tell you is a lot of brands like to support green and environmental issues because they're not as divisive as other things, so that it's a good field to go into for many different kinds of sponsors. And there may be some mainstream, very big companies that would like to put their toe in the something cute like this,
Nice. Yeah.
I know.
If it's mission oriented, you have a lot of opportunities. I also highly recommend you reach out to your film commissions from wherever you are shooting. Quite often they have a lot of help and relationships along this lines. You'd be surprised. Sometimes they have budgets. They can also make sure that you're not missing any tax credits or things like that, but they might also have contacts with certain brands who've expressed interest in getting more involved with films. If you have a mission-oriented film, there's all kinds of foundations, whether it's family foundations, different type of people like that who want to fund things that are mission-oriented. So if it's about the environment, there's a ton of those. Also, as Nancy mentioned, trade shows of all types and film festivals of all types have all kinds of brands available that want to be part of this community. So I was at Sundance. We had a suite. We had a whole thing. I had brands there who wanted to give stuff. I mean, Tesla gave me 8 cars with drivers that literally drove people around the entire time. I had gifts for people who came in. I partnered with Extra TV. They were in our suite. They were interviewing all the celebrities. So the brands were thrilled. I mean, there's all kinds of creative ways, but if you're going, if you really have a mission, or you're doing documentaries, or you're doing films that have that kind of mission, I would definitely find if there's any of those industry conventions, trade shows, foundations, things like that you can align with, because that would be really helpful along those lines.
Nice. Thank
I
you.
think that sort of falls a little into that category, not quite as sponsorship, but a bit more as marketing. Be really smart about your fiscal sponsorship. If that's something that you're doing for a documentary funding, anybody that's donating to your film gets it as a tax write-off if you run it through a nonprofit, but you pick a nonprofit that has a huge mailing list or has some interest in your film. For example, with My Mile and a Half, we partnered with the American Hiking Association. All of our donations went through them. They kept 10%, which is great. Funneled the rest of the money through us. It's all legal. But then they did email blasts to us, to their 1 million members. I don't know how many times, right? So it was just great.
And then you can do a premiere with them, or like invite their guests and do screenings. And, I've done all that stuff. We've done screenings. I mean,
all around the country.
I even did a mentorship program in a summer where we shot a movie that took place in a school. We had all the students come and act as students. We needed real students. And then we mentored some of the really top students, and we put them with professionals, and they got to learn from behind the scenes how to shoot a movie, how to do all this stuff. They went on to film school. We mentored them. The school gave us the school. We had these kids. They were super excited, super helpful. They were extras in the movies. Some of them got lines. I mean, it was just a great experience. And guess what? Every single one of them promoted it. We did a big screening at the end of it for all their friends and family. It got press because we mentored the students. I mean, it was just, it really was huge.
I think that's all super, super valuable. I mean, I always talk, anytime that we have a production coming through, one of the first things we ask, is this associated with a nonprofit or student film? It's great to do service, like you're saying, to be of service, which is the number one awesome thing that we like to do. And promotion is great, but also a lot of people don't realize that the fees that are significantly reduced that come along with making your film, if you're a nonprofit. So if you can
Yeah.
find a way to do it, like Film LA, or any other ways to work it, that it's anyway. So yeah, that's super helpful.
And I use it to negotiate. I got discounts on
Yeah.
every single thing in the
Yes.
movie because I said, we're doing this to, mentor, and we did all this whole program, and they gave me discounts on the on the equipment. Somebody asked something about whether it's to be an LLC or a corporation.
I was just about, that was going to be, I have one question before that, but you can go ahead and answer that, and then I'll go back to the other one. So yeah, do you need
sorry,
to
it
be an
just popped
LLC?
up.
No, go ahead. You go
Yeah,
for it.
I mean,
Funny.
I would say at minimum become an LLC. I do each project as an LLC so that you have that protection. If you want to, I mean, a corporation is good for your full umbrella company, but I would make each film its own LLC. That's just I don't know if Kia has a different take on it, but that's how I do it.
100%. Yeah. Have the umbrella companies, the corporation, LLCs, just watch your officers, make sure you have your operating agreements and all of your annual paperwork related to that. People don't understand that that's something that they have to continue to take care of through the life of the
Yeah,
LLC.
every year you have an LLC, you have to pay that yearly fee. And if you're not going to use it anymore, you can go ahead and dissolve it, but you need to make sure you process that and you do your taxes under it and all that stuff. So I would make sure that you take care of that. Make sure if you're not good with the accounting that you have somebody help you with that. That's a good investment because it can be a nightmare if you don't have it done properly.
And the benefit of doing it too is just to protect your own personal assets. If something
Yes.
happens with the project, that you're not, you're not
personally.
the first line of defense for any kind of litigation. So,
yeah, this is all great stuff, you guys. Jonathan said, this is from earlier, so I just want to make sure. He said, I think I heard hiking equipment for documentary film. To do this with this topic is great. Do you have any other examples for documentary films to get our imagination going for cross promotion or product placement or marketing support?
Specifically for a hiking, or are you just saying in general for documentary type movies?
Jonathan, if you're here, he said for documentary film.
So, I mean, once again, you think of like, who's your target audience? Who's going to want this movie most? Sometimes it's just more of a general drama. The doc I'm working on right now is about comics and comic book collections, but there's a character that has Asperger's, right? So we're like, okay, who are our audience for that, and where are they? Where are they located? Who are they shopping with? Where are they?
I have somebody for you. I'll connect you.
Wonderful, great. So you start there. That's where your brainstorming starts, and you continue to whittle it down and again, get creative about what are those particular brands that would either be interested in that same audience or speaking to that audience,
or supports those organizations.
Yes, for sure.
And you can literally Google who supports Asperger's or who supports people with autism. What companies support people with autism? You can literally Google anything. Which companies support cancer research or cancer organizations. If your story is about that, you can literally Google which companies do X and you will get a bunch.
And you could just find out a lot by searching around on social media. Who are they liking? Who are they responding to? Who are they promoting or tagging?
Go to that charity's website and go to their partnership page and see what brands have been supporting them.
And, we've done a reverse pitch before to get sponsors where we actually create some bit of content around the film and we put it up on social media and try and make it noisy. And we make sure that we either tag those companies we're interested in, hashtag them. And so then they get a sense of it. For My Mile and a Half, we did a music video based on the footage with a song from the film. And that started getting shared around and it got the attention of some of the companies who we had already targeted. With Selling Superman, we did a trailer and we're sharing it as well. So then the very first question, right? How does a filmmaker make their film more appealing to sponsors? Is begin to build an audience for it already. Put out something that's sexy and fun, some media about it. So then people want to be part of the winning team, so to speak, right? They want to get on the winning, they want to bet on the winning horse. So show that you're already winning because you've already got a following and you've got some cool media going out.
When you actually struck something in chord with me, if you talk about reverse, but I was thinking of reverse and not the way that you said it, is let's say I have a connection with cancer research or AIDS research or you know, anything, going to somebody and going to them, talking to them, coming up with a storyline, gathering a connection, like creating a connection. And
I
then
had friends do that. I had my friends did a movie called Awake, and they did it for the Self-Realization Fellowship. They're, you know, award-winning, Academy Award-winning filmmakers. And they're like, we have an idea to do a documentary about Yogananda Brahmananda. And so they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Completely funded. So it was funded from the get-go.
Yeah.
They're already profiting. And oh my God, that film, of course, they've got millions of not users, you know, members all around the world. And it was also a bit of a cultural hit too. It wasn't just to this niche, right? But it's making partnerships with the people that they have around them.
Yeah, if it's a documentary, and you're starting with a desire to have a mission or something like that, I absolutely connect with people in that field, in that world, because they'll have passion there and there might be funding for you, for sure. But also, even I do clever little things like what you mentioned with that. Like I had this like tiny movie. It ended up becoming a big cult hit. It's made millions of dollars. We made it for $16,000, shot it in a week. I had to add 3 days just to get the rest of the actors in because they were on other things. Not one big A-list star at the time, but all working actors. We literally, I mean, even silly things like we had this, I needed music. So we didn't have money to really get top music, but we found this band that was very big at South by Southwest. They were called the Chicharrones, and they had this really funky opening to this song that we wanted. We talked to them. They have a following. We used their song in it. We gave them a card in it. They sent it to like their whole fan base. We like opened the movie with it. It's this really cool, upbeat, funky music. You know, you could do a TikTok with it. It goes out. It's fun. Everybody's passing it around. Like we had lines out the door at every screening. We did festivals for a whole year. We won Best Comedy in Chicago. We won Best Feature in Napa. We won Best Audience Favorite. We won all over the place. We toured with it for a full year, sold it to Netflix, Amazon, Google Play. I mean, it's like this tiny little movie. Like I literally thought it would be like a family, like my family would watch it and that's it. Like I am just blown away. But it's like you do this tiny thing, and if you really just start to get this momentum and you find little ways that are creative. And so literally every song on it is an independent artist who we bought the music from. Every single one of them had their own following. They were so excited. They sent it out to all their fan base. They got paid, you know, we tagged them, they sent it out. It just became like the little engine that could. They just sold it to Paramount Plus. It's on Paramount Plus. It's like, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, it was like we MacGyvered it with a pack of gum and a Q-tip, and now it's like on everybody. It's like, it can happen. It's just, you've got to really.
But that's the power of bringing a following, right? When you pack the film festival screenings because you already have people that are excited to see the film because you've been doing promotion, then that's how you get your audience award. And that makes distributors a lot more interested in your film. Like it becomes a snowball effect.
We had $0 for marketing. I mean, I'm not kidding you. $0 for marketing, zero. We spent every cent just getting the movie made. And, the fact that we had color correction and post and all that was like a godsend. Like we just literally got this thing to the finish line. And, it was word of mouth. We were very lucky that people responded to it. It's the kind of film that when you pack people in, the energy of the room really carries it. And that we got the guy from NBC came and wanted to make it into a TV series, like at the LA screening. So, I mean, anything is possible, guys. It's like, but you do have to be creative. You do have to be strategic. You can't expect it to magically, it's funny. Somebody was talking about manifestation, right? And everybody thinks manifestation is just looking up at the sky and begging for something and you just magically appears. But what it is it's really about believing that it's going to happen, believing that it is happening, but taking those steps and doing the work that takes you to that place. So it's not just this magic that just it appears. You genuinely have to believe in what you're doing and care enough and love it enough that you will put your heart into it. and then do the work and take the steps and really hustle. And that's when magic happens. So it's like magic happens when you do the work and you believe in it.
I love that. I think, and also, yeah, taking chances, believing in it, like you said. And there are really no rules, right? It's like,
I mean, that's the thing. Everyone wants this like magic answer, right? Everybody
Yeah.
wants this like, how do I
Right.
do this? It's like there's 1,000 ways. I mean, I'm sure Kia's done 40 things and I've done another 40 things and Nancy's done 40. I mean, you know, that's why it's good you have three of us, because it's like we have different experiences. So
And do it. You know, I think that's the most important thing that we're saying here is do it. You know, just make sure that you do it. And persistence. And I have never heard of an overnight success. There is no such thing. You got to keep working.
well, that
You
just means you heard about it overnight. That's
Yeah.
it's like somebody's been working on it for
There.
20 years and you just know who they are now.
Yeah. So, you know, whatever ideas happen, keep going, keep trying, keep doing different things. You know, we're talking about different kinds of marketing. There are certain things that are available for free. There are certain things that you have to pay for. There are certain things that people will do for you using some of the people that you have in the movies or involved with the movie to be a spokesperson. There are events that you could be doing. There are things that the products that you probably didn't even realize the product is looking for that you could be doing. You know, the world is your oyster.
And you'll be shocked at what you get from asking nicely. You'll be
Yeah.
shocked at what you get from asking nicely.
I
The
never
world
would
is-
have thought about going to trade shows. I mean, that's like just walking. I mean, they're every day, all day around the world or around
Yes,
the country. Like just
exactly
going
right.
in, product placement and walking through is a brilliant
Oh,
point.
And
Yeah.
and my little tip for trade shows, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I will usually with your, you know, your admission to it, you get a back end where you can see everybody that's there, what their booths are, and sometimes it has contact information. I'll email those people ahead of time and just say, hey, we haven't met each other yet, but I just want to be on your radar. I'm going to be coming by your booth. I'm so excited to see the new stuff you're going to be having. You're presenting out this season and whatever, and look forward to talking to you. And then sometimes that'll start, and I've done that on like LinkedIn messages. I've done that DMing people before. And it just starts a little dialogue. They're like, oh yeah, great. Looking forward to see you. Because they're just being polite and nice. And then you have a name to a face. You're like, I'm here. And sometimes I do mention my project. Sometimes I don't, versus me walking up to the booth cold. They're already expecting me. And I've even scheduled sometimes a coffee or a lunch or something like ahead of time. So I'm trying to book my stuff even before I get there.
That's great. I mean,
One thing I can tell you though about trade shows is that they're very, very big and very, very busy. And if you try and organize, meeting people, very often those meetings aren't going to happen because there's too much going on. But when you think about it, when you walk into a trade show, it's overwhelming. There's so many different people, but everybody feels just like you do. Like there's a lot of people who could be my friend. And, what LAINIE, you just be nice to them, walk up to them. And it's great to send the email and tell them that you're going to be there and attempt to set up meetings, but don't be upset if the meetings don't happen. It's a great idea to do them, but very often there's too much going on. But like when you that face-to-face contact really makes a difference. And then you get to know the industry and you understand what people are looking for.
I would make sure if you're going to do a trade show though, that you have a map and that you target specific ones that you really want, because that way you make sure that you've hit the ones that you really, really want to get to. And then you can kind of, if you have more time, you can kind of go around, but you really want to target some. So if you have hiking or a documentary about nature or whatever, make sure that the ones that you really think are a good fit for you, and try to do some research about what they support. So that way you have a conversation starter too. I actually prefer to walk up to the booth without them knowing me and just say, oh, hi, what's, and just find out who's there and get their cards. And, and obviously you try to be respectful if they're helping someone wait, but like, at least you've gotten their card. but that's part of being nice and being respectful is, don't interrupt or put, if they're in the middle of conversation, because again, you're wanting something from them. So find a good time to, to really get them when they're quiet and talk to them and just say, hey, this is, and use the information that you've gathered. Like, I saw that you guys support ocean cleaning. I heard that you support the environment. I'm doing this project that really fits with your goals and your mission. I'd love to talk to you more about it. I know you're super busy. Can we schedule time to chat? And that way you're not dumping everything on them right there about everything, but you're saying, I have a project that really aligns with what you guys are doing. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing and how we can work together.
On that note, we're going to wrap up just very quickly. A lot of the projects that come through us, through our pipeline, are crowdfunding campaigns. And so with that comes perks. So when we're doing that, do you have any kind of guidance or advice as far as perks, especially, well, for profit, but also anything about perks that you guys can touch on?
Yes, they can be the bane of your existence.
I couldn't even say it, so I was stuttering. So I just stuttered.
Digital
So
perks
thank you,
are
Kai.
the best. Anything that you don't have to ship out, and that's always great.
Yeah. Don't forget about the cost of shipping.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Gotta budget that in.
But if
Right.
you can invite them to like your premiere or something, that's when you can give them like swag and stuff, and that can be helpful because I don't know why, but people love the free t-shirts. We had like people were like diving and like risking their lives, throwing themselves on the floor for a t-shirt. I was like, it's just a t-shirt. What? I was like, geez. But it's yeah, I agree with Kia. Like, if you can make them digital, or sometimes at a higher level, maybe giving them a credit on the film, or which can be really helpful because people love that. But it's obviously you want to get more money for it if you're going to give them an actual credit. I had a mom one time who bought two credits for her kids for like 10 grand.
As a associate producer, or what did you call associate producer?
She wanted a credit for her kids. I was like,
okay, well, hey, no,
that was when I was starting, and I was like, I don't have any money. I'll take it.
Okay, that's very helpful. I'll give you associate producer. Okay.
And you don't have to ship it.
I don't have to ship associate producer. Okay. Great. No, this is super great. Wait, do you have anybody else have? I'm looking in the chat. All great.
Well, I wanted to-
Zoom stuff. You can sell Zoom things with your star. You can have premieres. You can do a screening in their at a venue in their area. You can do. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do that can also help you promote the movie.
I want to tell everybody that we've had you guys talking now for almost an hour and a half, so I don't want to kill y'all. So we're gonna wrap up the main portion of the evening here, but I do want to give each of you a chance to wrap something up. Like, if there's one last thing you'd like to say, or one like strong point you'd like to make to finish things up here, succeed or die trying, whatever. By the way, I love the whole thing earlier about the world is your oyster, but you guys were also talking about putting in the work. It's like the world is your oyster, but no one's going to hand you the oyster. You got some shucking to do, folks. So, you got to do the work. So I love that. Yes, is there anything, Kia, is there anything that you'd like to say to wrap up?
Again, I'm all about strategy and process and really coming up with a system. Think of what your customer journey is going to be, and, line it out every step of the way. I'll kind of give you my guide point of just what I do for the podcast. Identify your audience, gather who your prospects are, and then identify what you have to offer. And I call those the properties and the assets. What are you going to be offering to them? And then I do create that pitch deck, that media kit, whatever that is, that proposal in your email. Reach out to your prospects. But again, just you're reaching out to the prospect to just do a discovery meeting. And while you're there, get to know them. That's when you're creating your relationship, and find out, do they only have a raft for you, or do they have 40 grand for you? So then you're making a proper proposal to them. And then after you send off the proposal, it's all agreed upon, you close that deal, then deliver on it and be in contact with them every step of the way. Make them your friend, because this is not the only time you'll ever want to do business with them. You'll either want to do something in the future or have them recommend you. And then in the terms of the podcast, of course, then we deliver a fulfillment report, right? We talk to them about how it worked, and then keep that door open for future relationships. Like LAINIE said, then she could just be like, hey, I got something new. Are you interested? Do you want to see the terms? Do you want to see the prices? And then go for it.
Awesome. LAINIE?
I think he covered it. I mean, that's it. Being strategic is really helpful, so you're not wasting your time. So take your script, as she was saying, to really create a target list. Like, I like to create a target list, and really highlight whether it's 5, 10 companies that fit organically into your movie or into your project. And think outside the box a little bit too. If you are doing something with a mission, think about the other foundations or companies that may want to support you. Also, for your locations, you can get sometimes free locations if you're marketing for a restaurant or a school or whatever else. That could really help your budget. So there's just a lot of ways to really be creative and think about it. And don't get discouraged, but you need to really be strategic, thoughtful, and do what you say and follow through and be very clear. And I can't, the deal memo thing is huge. I had somebody who said, oh, they didn't give me the money. I said, well, where's the deal memo? Oh, they told me they were going to do it. And I was just like, oh, and they didn't do it. They never got paid. They did this whole thing, never got paid. It wasn't my project, but it was for a nonprofit, and they were like, I just was like, oh my God. But yeah, that's huge. But be strategic, think things through, break down your script, know what you need for every scene. And almost every script has things that you can work into it. Every script.
Nancy?
Yeah, strategy is really important, but I think it's also really important to know that you have to work a lot at this. This is, it isn't easy. What I want people to do, what I hope people will walk away from here, is that they will think about sponsorship and they will feel like empowered that they picked up something, whether it's going to a trade show or looking at trade publications or, just examining the script to try and figure out which brands, knowing that there are certain categories that are definitely in every single movie. And I also want, we didn't get to talk about it much here, but I also want people to think about the publicity potential of the project that they're doing at all times, because if you can get publicity about this, it really changes everything. And there are, whatever you're working on, there are bloggers, there's publications, there's TV shows that would be interested. So whether we're talking about national publicity or local publicity, but you should think about that. And when you're thinking about potential partners, think about, find out, are they going to be doing the press or are you going to be doing the press? If you're going to be doing the press, what are you actually doing? And there are professionals who do it, and you can do it, and whatever it, just make it happen and do it. And also, don't worry about what's first. I think you got to do everything kind of all at once, So strategy is super important. It will save a lot of time, but there's a certain amount of just getting out and doing it and making things happen and being your chance of being at the right place at the right time is being in as many places as you possibly can be.
And having people around you who are good at the things that maybe you aren't, like knowing your strengths and weaknesses and finding other people to work with who are strong where you aren't, and knowing yourself, because it's really important that you don't make a mistake of thinking that you can do it all. Filmmaking is a team effort. It takes a lot of people to make a good film. I don't care how good of a filmmaker you are. Look at the credits on any movie. It's huge. So being selective about who you partner with is huge, and finding people who are strong where you aren't is really important.
Excellent. Will the three of you do me a favor? If there's anything we left out of the chat that you want to share, like email addresses or contact or websites or whatever, please feel free to throw it into the chat for everybody. And if you would like to stick around for what we call after hours, which is just basically everybody's chatting with each other and maybe take further questions. There might be more questions out there. You're welcome to, but you're not obligated to. We are thrilled that you have given us this much of your time, and we thank you so much. This has been a great little event. Thank you.